There we go. I don't know what to think. Honestly, yeah, because this is the Hell in a Cell reactions video. My only sort of big complaint is the length of the show. The fact that it went for 3.5 hours, and that's the pay-per-view bit. That doesn't include the pre-show, having the Gable and Benjamin versus Hype Bros match. And the angle which led to a change to the match on the main card. Just, well, I mean, it's the scary thing is the WWE title match was one of the shorter matches on the card. Because we're quickly running through the times. The tag match on the pre-show went about 10 minutes. The tag title Hell in a Cell match went 22. If you think about it, that makes sense because it's a Hell in a Cell match. Orton-Rusev went basically 11.5 minutes. The triple threat for the US title, we'll get to that, went nearly 20. The Charlotte and Natalya thing, which ended in a DQ, it was a DQ that went 12 minutes. Basically about the same amount of time as Jinder Mahal Nakamura did, and that actually had like a normal-ish finish. Rude and Ziggler had a lot of time, and it didn't feel right. I think if it was somewhere further in the card and had the chance to legit steal the show, you could have done something with it. But where it was as like the precursor to the main event, it felt like it should have been shorter. It's weird. And then the Owens-McMahon match. I mean, it went 39 minutes. There was about 4 or 5 times when I was like, right, match is over. And it continued. And at first it was like, man, this is still going. Once it got to the 3rd or 4th and then the 5th time, it was like, okay, this has been going on a bit too long. Can we please have some control, please? Admittedly, the end was interesting, but let's quickly get into it. So, on the pre-show, Dillinger gets added into the US title match, basically, because he wants an opportunity because of what's happened and everything, and Daniel Bryan put him in, and there was like a yes 10 weird thing. Who knows? And then the Gable and Benjamin versus Hype Bros match. It was interesting. The Hype Bros did go for the finisher, and then Ryder and Rawley were arguing with each other again, and Shelton and Chad take the advantage from it and do their, what is it, like the power bomb neck breaker combo that they do. And Ryder gets pinned by Gable to give Chad and Shelton the win. So then, I mean, it was really good, the opening match, the opening Hell in a Cell, which you sort of thought would happen. They'd try and bookmark them. At least have one early and then one later on. And the amount of great spots that were in here, like strapping somebody to the side of a cell with kendo sticks. All the good spots, just really well put together. You could really see that they'd worked out what spots they can do, which would be unique. And then the double Samoan splash onto a chair-covered Xavier Woods. All in all, good match. 5-time champs overall, 3 times Smackdown champs as well. Of that 5. The Orton-Rusev one wasn't too bad either. At least it wasn't like 9 seconds. There was a back and forth, certainly towards the end, with the RKO attempt that got reversed into the accolade, but Orton managed to just about escape it, hit the RKO and get the win. Pretty solid there. So then, the triple threat match. As I say, it shouldn't have gone as long as it did, but they worked it well, and the finish was probably what it needed to be with the triple threat. So AJ hit the phenomenal forearm on Ty Dillinger. He's about to go for the pin, but Corbin kicks AJ like so hard, it sort of looked like he could have kicked him out of the ring, sort of like with air. It was that ludicrously stiff looking a kick that it was. Corbin steals the pin on Dillinger, gets the win. Corbin's US champ. I'm intrigued to see where this goes, considering we have Survivor Series on the way. At least for the Smackdown brand. Then the women's title match thing. The big thing was, well, the amount of Ric Flair pushing in this was like, they really want him to be back, don't they? Sooner rather than later. And the big thing was Charlotte's right knee was being worked over a shit ton. And she sold it pretty well, admittedly. The bit when she went for sort of she was going for an aerial bit, she was literally hopping from rope to rope on one leg. And then she tweaked it even more when she did the shooting star press or whatever to the outside when she landed directly on her feet. So again, she sold it. But then Natalya comes in and smacks her with a chair, goes in the DQ, smacks the hell out of her knee, and Charlotte wins by DQ, but of course that means Natalya retains the belt. So clearly, this was like, this feud isn't over, we're continuing it next month. Which I guess means the 4 Horsewomen stuff that I want to happen at Survivor Series ain't happening. Then again, we can still build to it. So then, because it makes sense, because it's the world title, the not even penultimate match, but the penultimate match was the WWE title match with Jinder versus Nakamura. And as you'd expect, the Singhs tried to involve themselves and successfully did a few times, which eventually led to good old ref Charlie Robinson going, "You're out!" And as that was happening, Nakamura got the Kinshasa and connected. Pinned him, or was going to pin him for a brief second, but Nakamura realised the ref was faffing about with the sings. Robinson comes sliding in. 1, 2, and Jinder just manages to get his hand to the bottom rope, causing the count to finish, to stop beforehand. Then Jinder tried to escape through the crowd, only for Nakamura to grab him, bring him back into the ring. Slides in, which of course means bloody Jinder connects with the Callas. I think that's what it's called. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, the Cobra Clutch Slam. It's actually going by the name Callas. Cobra Clutch Slam sounds better. Either way. And somewhat clean, Jinder retains. So I think, if the rumours are to be believed, the title change is actually happening at the Royal Rumble. And of course it's John Cena. Because of course it is. And then Bobby Roode versus Ziggler. Bobby had his grand entrance, not as grand as it was in NXT, sadly. And then Ziggler's big elaborate entrance was his music started, but then cutting off. The Tron goes black, and Ziggler walks out with no visuals, no music, just with his jacket on and everything. What they did was pretty good, but as I say, as a match that's leading into the main event, it felt like it went a little too long. Especially with, we had 3 or 4 consecutive roll-up attempts against each other. Eventually with Roode, with a handful of tights, pinning Ziggler. So yes, well, I guess you could say it's fair play, or fair game, because Dolph was trying to roll up Bobby with the tights as well. Or handful of trunks, whatever you want to call it. And I love the fact that people are like, Bobby's acting like a heel, but he's being cheered. It's like, well, it's the people's fault. They're the ones that actually know what Bobby Roode's like. They're the ones that sing along to Glorious. You know, it's why I cannot boo Kevin Owens. 1, because I rate him, but 2, just the musical score. It's not something that I detest to hear. With Jinder I do, because it's racist, stereotypical as hell. Have the Indian guy come out to some Indian-sounding music, because stereotypes. And then, of course, when he did the promos and everything, didn't help. Then again, I did like the fact as well that afterwards, Roode celebrates, and immediately, like within a few seconds, Ziggler just hits a zigzag on him. Pissed that he lost with himself. And leaves. Is that Ziggler's last ever pay-per-view for WWE? Or at least last pay-per-view for a while? We'll have to see. But the way it finished, I sense that this could be continuing down the line. Possibly to Survivor Series, maybe beyond, who knows. But, yeah. And then the Falls Count Anywhere Hell in a Cell match. Which went somewhat everywhere. There was an attack outside the cell. Then both managed to go in. It was very smartly done. Kevin sort of grabbed the door so Shane couldn't get in. So Shane basically kicked in sort of the head region and hurt Kevin so he could get back in, and then it got locked up and everything. They had a good sort of sequence inside the cage, you know, the wall spots, the cannonball through the table because Shane dodged it, the coast to coast with the steel trash can. And then it went to the outside, eventually, because apparently Shane doesn't know how to use chain cutting pliers and whatever. So he set up an announce table. But then, from what I remember, Kevin cleared an announce table, put him on the table, and was going to jump off the ringside barrier close to where the Spanish announce desk was. Except, he started looking up at the top of the cage, and he climbed up to the top, and kept going and going, and he was there and trying to G himself on, and he was like, he couldn't do it. And then gradually Shane got up and climbed up, and they had and it's probably the first time this substantially, maybe since Rollins Ambrose, and then before that, the most I can think of, if you don't count Lesnar celebrating on the roof after his win in 2003, but that big bit that had Triple H and Chris Jericho up on the top back in 2002, I think. Yeah, it must have been 2002, thinking about it. They had a big old brawl on top of the stuff, doing spots on the top, basically with the announcers sort of like going, is the roof going to collapse? And at some point it bulged enough to make you go, oh God. And perhaps that was a bad thing, if you think about it. And then it eventually got to the side of the cage halfway down, a la sort of Shawn Michaels, and Shane managed to knock Owens off and through the Spanish announce table. And Shane's about to go for the pinfall, and he looks up. Clears out the announce table for the English desk, headbutts Owens onto it, climbs up the cage, and Shane does his old, cross himself, leap of faith. And then the twist. Sami Zayn appears out of nowhere to grab Kevin and pull him off the table so he doesn't get hit, and Shane crashes and burns. And Sami doesn't know what to do. Obviously, Owens is recovering because he obviously fell off the side of the cage. And then Sami just clears all the medics out, drags Kevin on top of Shane, grabs the referee and says, count it. And Mike Chioda counts 3. Kevin wins via his arch nemesis, in theory, but if you think about it, they're practically sort of blood brothers. They've been together through thick and thin. for years. Both as enemies and as friends. And part of me just feels as if the angle as to, why Sammy, why, is going to be, we may be enemies, but there's still that bit in me which cares for his well-being. And Shane doing what he did was just a step too far. It might be a heel turn, it might not. But certainly it's more a case of, he's my friend. He's basically my brother. I just couldn't bear to see what could have happened to him. And that, I think, is an interesting angle that could be pursued in the upcoming months. We'll have to see what happens with it. Especially as well, like when Sammy's walking away after everything and the medics are seen to, mostly Shane, but also to a lesser extent to Kevin. Owen sort of looks up as Sammy's sort of walking around the cage, also looking on, and Kevin sort of got the look of that, what the hell? But sort of like a stunned reaction, as even he can't understand why Sammy would save him. And then of course you had the whole Shane, I'm alright, thumbs up, because reasons. But all in all, as I should move down because I'm sitting further back today, I only decided to do that 22 minutes in. Framing! All in all, if only it hadn't have gone as long as it did, this was an excellent show. Even with some average matches in the middle. But just because of it being dragged out as long as it was, I'd say it's overall a good show. I didn't even talk about the fashion files bit. The fashion files were too fairy-free, in a knowledge to Cesaro. There was a bit about Ty's haircut, and they said I'd give it a 4. There was one that I missed. There was Kevin Owens and Baron Corbin, where it said they don't like sleeves. All sorts of stuff. And then the angle with the Ascension. And being incognito and trying to be friends and everything. And, being sort of made fun of and just said, you could have just said to our faces, man. You didn't have to say behind our backs. And, of course, the Breezango are like, man, those disguises were excellent. When you could clearly tell it was them. And they go to check on the door because there's knocking on it, thinking it's the Ascension. They're going to apologise to it. And instead there's a black briefcase. And I'm going, okay, the rumours are true then, aren't they? And they get the briefcase, they open it, ever so slightly, and there's a golden light shining out of it. And the next case is Pulp Fashion, which begins, or premieres, whichever you want to call it, on Smackdown on Tuesday. It's taken a while to get here, but man, it was good. And Corey as well. Corey Graves with the whole, thank God I've still got an IQ because I think that made me dumber. And there was also a nice, props to Corey as well. dropping in an old little "it's not fair" to Corbin, which is clearly sort of a tip of the hat to "it's not fair" to Flair. And then there was something as well, like Byron was saying how they're breaking through into unprecedented places here. And Corey was just like, you know, as long as they're breaking through the places and not breaking through the roof, I'm happy. It's just like, just little bits here and there, and proving why it's so refreshing to have Corey on Monday and Tuesday nights. He sort of is that vivaciousness that we've been looking for in terms of the colour commentary. So, good riddance, JBL, I guess. So yes. As it turns out, that was actually match 37 and 38 in the history of Hell in a Cell. And Kevin Owens is undefeated. And Shane McMahon is still never won one. He is cursed because reasons. I guess the Usos, yeah, it's the Usos first, and I'm guessing Kofi and Xavier Woods and Big E's first as well. Yeah, those figures aren't accurate. All in all, though, a pretty solid show. There wasn't really any match that was like, do not see, it's terrible. They were all decent to good to damn good. Nothing I'd say excellent, just because some of the matches went a little too long. But all in all, yeah, solid show. Let's hope this continues with the other stuff. So, upcoming content from me. I'll be back into the swing of the indie wrestling stuff. There's a lot of stuff to cover there. The TV stuff, I'll be doing a Raw recap of sorts tomorrow, heading into Tuesday. It'll be up, because it won't be up immediately. The indie stuff should be up sort of Thursday time. And then with the other stuff to catch up, the news I'll probably do in a separate video, not sure when. And then with the TV, I guess I've already talked about Lucha Underground for the past 2 weeks, but we got some of the Raw to catch up with, some Impact to catch up with, Ring of Honor as they build to the Glory by Honor show next weekend, and New Japan, and UFC with some incredible shit that happened on the show. And some awesome stuff like the Las Vegas tribute, but let's just say Demetrius Johnson might be in video packages for years to come. I will talk about that in one of the videos. I'm not sure whether it will be news and UFC bunged together, whether it will be indies and UFC. It'll probably be news and UFC, coming to think about it, though, because there's a lot of indies to get through. Just so these files are not too long for Owen to deal with in terms of uploads. So, that's your lot from me for this video. I'll see you next time, because that's all Owen has to say about that. Probably.